All right, welcome back for section two. Before we really get in the notes, you should watch the Great Society video, which is the first video linked in the description before we really get into notes. So at this point, you should pause this, watch that video, and then come back. So, section two, Lyndon Johnson will propose a Great Society program to improve the economy, education, the environment, and government assistance to the poor. Lyndon B. Johnson's political experience in the U.S. Senate as the Senate Majority Leader contributed to his ability to use this system, as we call it, to accomplish his goals. In the weeks that followed the assassination of John F. Kennedy, Lyndon B. Johnson, or LBJ as we're going to call him, pushed Kennedy's civil rights and tax cut bills through Congress. Um, so Johnson is very, very good at getting legislation passed, especially being a former Senate Majority Leader. Gives him a lot of experience working with the Senate. So the election in 1964 will actually prove to be a landslide in favor of LBJ and the Democrats. As you can see, it is one of the single largest electoral college victories of all time. Um, and so this is going to be due to several factors. Um, and so, um, as you can see, pretty much everybody except the Deep South will end up voting for LBJ in 1964. And the Republican candidate Barry Goldwater's radical views will disturb and frighten many voters. Um, and you should watch this YouTube link. It's the Daisy video located in the description that I have posted for you guys. It's kind of powerful in the way that it proves Barry Goldwater's a little crazy. Just a little background information before you do watch the video is Barry Goldwater was a big fan of using nuclear weapons to solve disputes. So he was very, very pro nuclear weapon, despite anything that may come about because of this. And LBJ also now had a public mandate to proceed with his Great Society program. In other words, because so many people voted for him, his programs were deemed as very, very popular to the people, and this allowed him to be able to pass a lot of legislation very quickly. So, LBJ's Great Society's success. First off were tax cuts that were endorsed by both Kennedy and Johnson despite fears of deficit spending. As planned, increased consumer spending would pump prime the economy. So because of the tax cuts, you're going to see a huge rise in gross national product. In 1964, it was about $7.1 billion dollars. That would go up to 8.1 in 1965, and in 1966 it was up to 9.5 billion dollars. It's a pretty good amount for back then. Also, as another effect of these tax cuts, would be decreased unemployment, which is always a good thing, getting people back to work, allowing them to have money to spend. LBJ will also start a war on poverty in 1964, and he's going to use several different programs to do this. The first one is the Economic Opportunity Act, which was targeted to fight the causes of poverty, such as illiteracy, unemployment, and a lack of government services and job training. So, in other words, he's going to start having to increase education to get rid of illiteracy, which oftentimes led to unemployment. So during the Economic Opportunity Act, he's going to be creating programs in order to help reduce these things. Also, you have VISTA, or Volunteers in Service to America, which sent volunteers to help people in poor communities in the United States. It was often viewed as a domestic version of the Peace Corps. So in the Peace Corps, basically you finish college, you go off and you volunteer in some portion of the world for X amount of years, and they pay for your college education. Vista will be a domestic program of doing that. And with Vista, they're going to give poor people a voice in their housing, health, and education policy, um, because they're now going to have representatives there to help them. LBJ will also provide more government funds for education and target low income families with several programs. First off will be Head Start, created in 1965. This targeted preschool children with funds to help them prepare for school. So, kindergarten was a thing, however, preschool really wasn't as much of a thing. So, this allows 4 and 5 year olds to basically get a jump start and start preparing for school at the age of 4 and 5 instead of just going right into it. So, kids are now going to start with more social skills and a little bit more of a base knowledge going into actual school. Also, Elementary and Secondary Education Act will provide $1.3 billion in federal aid to states based on the number of low-income children. So if you have a more low-income children in your state, then you'd receive a larger chunk of this $1.3 billion. Um, and so this would be used to help those low-income communities receive a better education. And with a better education, hopefully these students would be able to get themselves into college or at least help find better jobs to get them out of poverty. Also, you're going to find an increase in cost of medical care. That's going to lead to several factors. First, we have Medicare, which provided hospital and low-cost medical care to citizens who are age 65 or older. Medicare will be very, very important for these elderly people, and the whole thought process is if you're 65 and you can collect Medicare, well, now you can retire at the age of 65, which will open up jobs for younger people because you don't have to worry about the cost of medical care. Also, you have Medicaid, which will provide low cost health insurance for Americans of all ages who couldn't afford private health insurance at the time. So you're going to have to know both of these. Medicare, think about it as care for the elderly. Medicaid is aid for those who can't get their own insurance. And so these were just some of the most important pieces of social legislation passed since the Social Security Act of the 1930s, and they will continue our government's commitment to provide help to those Americans who need it. So during the 1930s Great Depression, we're going to find that people start leaning a little bit more on the government to help them in their daily lives. And so, as a part of this, Medicare and Medicaid will keep providing for those people. And one last thing will be that we're going to talk about today is the Immigration Act of 1965, which ends discriminatory quotas established earlier and established more flexible limits on immigration rates and increased them, as did the number of political refugees and family members of U.S. citizens allowed to come here to the United States. So, in this Great Society program, we're going to start opening our borders a little bit more to immigrants to come in. In 1960, sorry, we're only allowed about 350,000 people to enter with a maximum of 20,000 people per country. By 1970, that number jumped to 400,000, which is quite a big boost. Um, and about 170,000 of those people were coming from the Eastern Hemisphere, and 120,000 roughly were from the Western Hemisphere. I know the math doesn't work out perfectly, but that's just kind of the percentages of people that were coming in at the time. So this is where we'll stop today. Tomorrow we're going to talk about a lot of court cases that were held at the Supreme Court that are going to greatly affect your lives even today. Not only how they changed people's lives back in the 1960s, 1950s when they were passed, but we're going to talk about how they actually affect you as a person and as a student today. So with that being said, I hope everybody's still doing okay, being away from everything. Keep practicing your social distancing, and hopefully at the end of the month, everything will be good for everybody. And we can go back outside and actually see people again. So hopefully everybody's doing well, and talk to you guys tomorrow.